Hey, welcome everybody to the fourth episode of Rockin The Code World with dotNetDave. I'm Dave McCarter. I'm really glad you're all here, and I'm really excited to interview today Julie Lerman, regional director at Microsoft, and because I've known her for a long time, and she's one of those people. That's kind of like me, but I really look up to because she knows everything about Entity Framework. So get your questions ready. I want lots of questions to show, okay? All right. So Simon, can you put up my slide deck? All right. So number 4, yay. Well, if I was on the right screen, I think it would work. There we go. So welcome to the show. I'm kind of going to go through the beginning quick because I have a code challenge for you guys today. And then I want to talk to Julie as long as I can. So I'm really glad you joined show number 4. This show is for you. So please email me your comments, good, bad, thoughts about things you would like me to do on the show, thoughts about guests you would like me to have on the show. No question is out of bounds. Please email me at dotNetDave@live.com and I'll get them worked into the show. Okay. Every show we have some giveaways, and as in the past 3 shows, I'm going to be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card towards the end. CSharpCorner swag will be first with the code challenge, and then I'll give a dotNetDave swag box full of stuff to somebody who answers who lives in the U.S. Sorry, it's really expensive. I shipped something to the Netherlands yesterday, so it's really expensive for me to ship anything across the ocean. And at the very end, everybody wins a copy of Code Rush from DevExpress, my #1 favorite code refactoring tool for Visual Studio. So stick around for that. So I decided to put in a new segment this week, and because I was doing some code review at work, and I always see code. I see a lot of code now that I'm a consultant, and some good, some bad. But this piece of code I found, and I looked at it and I said, oh, there's one thing that really needs to be fixed in this or refactored in it. So I'm going to see if you guys know what that is. So this code is in production right now, but I want us to refactor it. And whoever answers the question, email me if you have code you would like me to do the same thing to, and I'll be happy to do it on the show. And so the first prize we're going to give away is actually tied to this first segment. So to win the CSharpCorner gift bag, which is a backpack and t-shirts or whatever else CSharpCorner wants to throw in there, I want you to come up with the question I have on the first when I show you the code. So make sure you look quickly because I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. But when I saw this code for the first time, something clicked in me and goes, there's one refactoring thing I could do in this that would make this a lot more efficient and a lot more readable. So I want to see if you guys know what that is. And I actually previewed this with one of the youngest person on my team at work, and she didn't get it. So but this is open to everybody. Okay, ready? Here's the code. This is some code that extracts the message and the stack trace from the exception message, and also does the inner exception. So what's the #1 refactoring work that could be done to dramatically make this method better and easier to understand? I'm going to leave it up for a little bit so you can look at it. We don't have a ton of time because I want to talk to Julie, and whoever wins this, Simon, the winner to this gets the CSharpCorner gift bag. So anybody know? Let me move over to live comments, and nobody yet. So I'll leave it up for a little bit. I'll tell you that it's in this area of the code if you want some hints, and whoever can get this will win the CSharpCorner gift bag. Let's see if anybody knows. I saw it almost immediately once I looked over all the lines of code. I'll give you a couple more seconds. And then we're going to go on to the fix. I have two fixes, actually. One is a fix I think most developers would do. And then the last one is actually how I did it in my open source project and NuGet packages. So anybody know what's the big refactoring thing in this one? Nope, not the naming. It's refactoring to make this code better, not the name of the code. Couple more seconds. Come on, somebody should know. Nope. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on so we can get this going. We'll give away the CSharpCorner gift bag next week, I guess. But so this is the way. This is the way I think most people would rewrite this code. So just by first looking at it, you can see the code looks a lot simpler, but it does the same exact thing. But the big secret that the big thing that I saw that could make that the original code better is this recursion, right? They were doing loops. They were doing 2 loops in there to put together the message and the stack trace. And we basically can completely get rid of that by doing recursion. So those more junior people out there that don't understand recursion or might be afraid of it, please go learn. If you want me to write an article on CSharpCorner, tell me on Twitter or email me and I'll be happy to do it. But recursion is a really important thing. I want to get this hone this for you younger developers. Recursion is a really important thing for you to learn. So I hope you do that. So this is the way I think most developers, intermediate, even lead developers might rewrite this code. But there's even a different way you could do it, which actually I've already done in my open source project. I modified it, a minor modification to get the stack trace, but this is what's in my open source project and will be in my NuGet packages at the beginning of the month. And you can see here, I am doing making sure the exception is not null, which somebody has mentioned. And but the whole thing I'm doing in one line of code. And you can see there I'm using link. I'm using actually from hierarchy is from my open source project, but everything else is link, and that's it. And so to me, this is much more readable. I did proper commenting at the top of the at the method, which you're supposed to do, and I did proper checking of the variable, and boom, that's it. Okay. So if you like this, let me know. If you don't, let me know, and we'll see if we keep doing those. I want to plug really quick my new book I'm working on, the Hello World Cookbook, and you can go there to submit your recipes and help out with the book. And all proceeds will be donated monthly to the Voice of Slum NGO in India, which I'm already supporting now. One quick thing before Julie comes on, I have a show on Halloween, so I will dress up in Halloween costume and makeup if you design a geeky kiss-like makeup on my face there. I've tweeted this lots of times in the last couple of weeks, and so if you could come up with makeup for me to wear, I promise I will do it. I'll probably get you some prizes too. So, but the deadline is Sunday, because if no one comes up with it, I'm not going to buy the makeup. So I need time to buy the makeup. Okay. All right. And before we bring Julie on, one more giveaway. This is for the dotNetDave gifts, which I will send you a couple books and bumper stickers and whatever else I have laying around here since, I haven't been going anywhere this year. So I made this one really easy this week. What's my current ranking on CSharpCorner? Who knows? Anybody know? This is easy. All you have to do is go to CSharpCorner. Boy, a lot of people excited about Julie. Okay, I want to keep going. Whoever answers first will get the dotNetDave pack, but please make sure you live in the United States or Canada or Mexico. All right, so I want to bring on my good friend, Julie Lerman. I've known Julie for a long time, thankfully from the Microsoft MVP program. And, Julie is, let me read her bio. I'll read most of it because it's kind of long. Now, Julie Lerman is a Microsoft Regional Director, Docker Captain, and a longtime Microsoft MVP who now counts her years as a coder in decades. Yeah, me too. She makes her living as a coach and consulting software teams around the world. And you can find Julie presenting on Entity Framework, domain-driven design, which all things we could talk about today, and other topics. So, and she's got some books out, of course. If you're doing any of the framework, you need to buy Julie's books. That's all I can say about that. Okay, with that, let's bring Julie on.
Hello. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Julie.
Hi.
Hi.
It's fall. It's fall here in Vermont.
Fall in Vermont. I was going to ask you, how's the weather there?
Oh, it's beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
So, hi, everybody.
I'm originally from Delaware, and the one thing I really do miss is the seasons, because out here in Southern California we really don't have seasons. So I do miss
season.
This. Well, I mean,
sadly,
beautiful seasons.
Yeah, yeah. I had some friends who they live in California, and they just posted some pictures of them getting together, like on Facebook, and I looked and I was all confused because I was actually doing a FaceTime with them the other day. So I just feel like they're close, right? Mm-hmm. And their picture, everything was sunny and green, and I was looking at the window going, wait a minute, I'm so confused. And I was like, oh, right, they're in California.
Yeah.
Looks different.
Yeah, we're having really hot weather right now, so I'm really worried about our fires because this month starts our actual fire season. So the bad fires we had in September and late August, that's not our fire season. Our fire season is this month and next month.
Well, the worst season we have here is mud season. That's in between winter and spring, so when everything melts and we have a lot of dirt roads. We live on a dirt road, so the dirt road's pretty muddy. And Samson, my dog, who's black and white, he's brown and white during mud season because his white fur gets all muddy.
Yeah, I kind of remember those days as a teenager. I lived on a ranch in Arizona, and we lived on a dirt road. We lived on 40 acres. I had my own horse, and I never
knew all this. I just thought you were like born a rock star and rock and roll dude.
No, we lived like 3 miles from town. Like there was nobody near us. We had cats and dogs and pigs and goats and chickens and cows and rabbits and I said dogs and cats already. Yeah.
Wow.
My job.
I've known you all these years, and this is the first time I've ever heard about that. That's so cool to know.
And my job every morning before I went to school was to go feed those dang animals.
Oh, it wasn't just to muck?
No. Well, that too. I had to do that on the weekends. And then my job in the afternoons was to get on my horse and go find the cows, because the cows like to hide for me every afternoon. So every afternoon they'd pick a new hiding place so they wouldn't.
Like behind trees or something?
Well, like in the canyons because we lived on 40 acres. And so,
right.
We had canyons and big hills and stuff like that. And
like a movie.
They would literally hide from me.
It sounds like, did you ever bump into like Clint Eastwood or anything?
No, nobody famous there. No.
Well, I just mean I'm picturing Clint Eastwood movies, The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and all the cowboy movies.
The first star I met was Chuck Woolery.
Oh,
remember him?
Oh yeah. And he turned out to be kind of Looney Tunes, right?
Yes,
or maybe not. Right.
Yeah.
So if nobody, so he was a kind of a famous game show host in the 70s.
Yeah, I think he did the Wheel of Fortune 80s. Back then. I think he was the Wheel of Fortune or something.
And then he wrote this book and said he had been in the CIA and like killing people and going all over the world and doing covert operations. And then George Clooney made this really amazing movie about that story. It's really was it Chuck Woolery? No, Oh, no.
It might be somebody else.
Sorry, Chuck Woolery. No, it was the guy who did the crazy TV show, The Gong Show.
No, that guy.
That guy. Yeah. Sorry about that, Chuck Woolery. You're a clean-cut guy.
No, he's kind of crazy too, but just goes to show you what a lot of drugs in the 70s and 80s can do to your brain. So you young kids out there, don't do drugs.
Yeah. I was too young then anyway.
So anyway, let's get to why everybody is patiently waiting for you to talk about cool stuff. So
that was pretty cool.
No, I thought I would talk all this. I would talk the entire show just on that kind of stuff, right? But I don't think people just want to watch us talking about each other for an hour. I wouldn't mind it.
But... we do a little poll here. Just shoot the breeze. No, it's a great opportunity to meet other people. I'm kind of looking over on my other screen where the YouTube chat is. So yeah, I actually just linked it.
So I do have a quick question, which is not technical related. So how are you doing in Vermont during this pandemic? Because I know your father moved in, and I like to see your tweets about your father. Because every time I read them, I go, "Is this what my kids are going to say when I move in with them in 15 years?"
And you know what? I don't have kids, so I don't know who I'm going to move in with. So maybe somebody on the show will, adopt me when I'm a little old lady.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody will.
Tell some good stories. Maybe I'll entertain you. So yeah, it's interesting because I'm used to working at home anyway, and I work by myself. So those things of course things change. Our lives change, but kind of my day-to-day didn't have this huge impact by that so many people I know, who had to suddenly start working from home, and then they had 2 or 3 kids home doing homeschooling or, all of those things. So I didn't have that kind of chaos. And my husband, he's a self-employed carpenter, so he was not working for a while, which meant he said, I could finally work on the deck project I've always wanted to do. So he was keeping busy doing that.
Yeah.
And then the big thing was, of course, I wasn't traveling, but I got to live my life here a little bit and enjoy Vermont and ride my bike and work. And, so the kind of, mostly I've been focusing on like Pluralsight courses and things like that.
Yeah.
So
well, Julie, you're already getting offers to move in with them. So
take care of me when I'm a little old lady.
So just because I haven't been using any of the framework too much for a while, the team that I work in currently are still using the old Entity framework with the designer stuff. So, and I try to stay out of that, because I know. So anyway, with, .NET 5 coming out next month and everything, what's the big cool things coming out in Entity framework?
Well, so I don't know how much experience people have had as Entity Framework has transitioned through these newer versions of Entity Framework Core. But I think one of the most important things to understand is going from EF Core 2 to EF Core 3, there was tons and tons of breaking changes because the team said, we need to just focus on really tightening down and making Entity, the internals of Entity Framework and how things work really solid. And when they were creating EF Core, they were getting a lot of things done quickly. So they went back and looked and said, it would be really great if we could, do things under the covers this way or that way. And so instead of a lot of new features, what they did was they think of it as they were building a real foundation, like really making Entity Framework Core something that would be able to continue and have a longer life. Yeah. So Entity Framework Core 3 was, I refer to it as the breaking changes edition because there were so many breaking changes. So that was really painful, although they were very transparent about it and they explained every breaking change they made, what the old behavior was like, what it works like now, why they made the change, and what you can do to make lessen the pain of dealing with that change if it happened to affect your code and how you design things. So the big difference between EF Core 3 and EF Core 5 is that EF Core 5 now takes advantage of all that work they did in EF Core 3. So it's EF Core 3 had like 7 new features, right? EF Core 5 has a lot of new features and a lot of bug fixes and things like that, and minimal breaking changes. Like, maybe if you go to the breaking changes page, maybe there's like 15 on there or something like that. And they're really kind of extreme, like this, odd, SQLite, just things that are really edge cases that aren't really common things people are going to be hitting. So I just want to stop for a moment. I noticed that I've got a green screen and it's doing this weird thing in the corner, and I don't want it to be like making anybody sick or giving you headaches or something. Should I just turn the green screen off? Oh, you know what?
Oh, it's up to you.
Hey, if I move over here.
Oh, there it got better. Yeah.
So it's just, it does.
After the show, I can give you it. After the show, so I have the same problem, but I fixed it. So after the show, I'll tell you how.
I just noticed it. I just don't want to give anybody like headaches or something like that.
Yeah.
That's all. Anyway, so for me, that's like the most important message about EF Core 5, especially for all the people who knew about all the breaking changes in 3 and are worried that it's going to happen again. So it's not like that. So now they're, building, that's how I've been expressing it, building on the foundation. Plus, we've got some of the cool, some of the really nice features from EF6 that we've been waiting for, that were, there were more important things to do, right? But they finally buckled down and came up with a really beautiful new way of dealing with many-to-many relationships. So a lot of people, so many-to-many in the EF Core all the way through 3, you had to have an entity in between. So it's actually a pair of one-to-many relationships. And every time you do a query and build graphs and things like that, you had to, use the middle entity, and it was really, really hard to deal with. So now we've got many-to-many back, but they didn't just rewrite it the way that, like copy and paste the way they solved it with Entity Framework, 12 years ago, right? If you think about Entity Framework was released in 2008, right? So they were working on it even before then. So so you still have that same like simple kind of magic of just put a list on either end, and Entity Framework knows how to create the join entity, and you don't, when you're writing your code and queries, you don't have to worry about that at all. But underneath the covers, the way it's solved is so much better. It's not the way they had it in Entity Framework was like a house of cards, like you had to do it exactly like a certain way, and it wasn't flexible. So now it's much more flexible. And it's, maybe it feels like magic, but it's not like, real trickery underneath. They're using, they've got some really interesting new behaviors and patterns that support it. And there's a lot of advanced things you can do with it too, which is really cool. Logging is another, another feature. It had gotten really easy in EF6. So you could just say query .log. And then with the EF Core, what they did was tapped into the whole logging APIs of .NET Core, which was really good, right? So you're not doing a separate thing, right? Everything's integrated with each other. But there was a lot of setup to make that happen. Well, it's not a big deal, but it wasn't, you had to learn how to do it. It wasn't discoverable. Now there's basically a, .to log, but it's not doing it the way it did it in EF6. It's still totally integrated with the .NET Core logging APIs, but we just have a simpler way to use it. We just basically can say .2log and it'll use the defaults, or .2log and then, pass in a couple of like filters or something like that.
Right.
So you don't have to do all this extra setup. So, so people who had been using Entity Framework and moving to Entity Framework Core, we've got a lot of the features from old, from EF6. But these were some of the ones that were, people are like, oh my God, logging's too hard. and many, it's like, okay, we had a way to do it, but it was really, really hard to do. So that, they finally are able, they're so far along with it, right? They were finally able to attack it. But there's so much stuff in there, but I wrote an article, like, I can't even list them all. I think it was Arthur Vickers from the team wrote a blog post in September. It's like, he said he had a tweet. It was a tweet storm. It was a tweet thread, 18 tweets he used that enabled him to list the most interesting new things. Right. Not 18 new things, 18, 200, it was just this long thing just so he could say, here's what I think are the most interesting things of, that bubble to the top. Like there's so much.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
New capabilities and some of that some more parity that we've been looking for.
That's cool.
That's a little bit about EF5.
I do have a question. I've been meaning to research it, but since you're the expert, I thought I'd ask you.
The pressure.
No. So since, a lot of us, and because of Microsoft's kind of edging us on, are starting to look more at like, document, based databases like Cosmos DB. And does any framework have any plans to use? I know using Cosmos is pretty easy, but is there any plans on, bringing any framework into that world?
Yes. As a matter of fact, along with Entity Framework Core 3, there is a Cosmos DB provider.
Oh, really? So I didn't even know.
Yeah, and it could do some basic stuff. And then they've done a lot more work on it for EF Core 5, so it's even more interesting. So it won't create. It'll create a Cosmos DB database. You have to have your account just like if any other server, right? Yeah. The account has to exist. The server has to exist. So like not just your Azure account, but your Azure Cosmos DB account.
Sure.
Which is essentially a server, and then you create databases within that. So if the account exists and you just have the connection string, it has those same basic abilities. It will. It's not migrations, right? Because migrations is really specific to relational database, but it can, ensure created, right? It can create the database. It can create the, I'm having a brain fart.
Create the collections.
Thank you. The collections, create the collections. And there's some defaults about, how those collections are determined.
Yeah. Well, Cosmos does that now. I mean, I know Cosmos doesn't create the database if there's not one there, but it'll create the collections, I think. And so, the biggest, I've gotten kind of used to using Cosmos the way it is now. And, but my question was really about, the more, intermediate junior people, that it would be really nice if we just learned one framework that could attach to completely different types of data stores.
Yep. And that's, it's funny because you think, Entity Framework is an ORM, right? Object Relational Mapper. And Cosmos DB is not a relational database. No. So the question is like, why, right? Just, you have your graphs of data and you just create documents and stuff them in there. Why would you use a mapper to do that? So it isn't about the mapping capabilities. It's about the fact that we already know how to use Entity Framework. And so, it just gives us that, it's like take advantage of it to do, query, insert updates and deletes, like just to do that basic stuff. There's a point at which, it's not responsible for configuring configuring things, right? And you still have to make decisions about, you know, how you're going to design the collections and things like that. You know, and also like configuring the actual Cosmos DB account. So, you know, and also the Cosmos DB, you can access it with SQL. It's got a SQL language, and I almost said Redis. No, I almost said Reddit. You know, it's got a couple different languages. So the EF Core provider only works with a SQL because it knows how to build SQL, not T-SQL. It's, you know, special SQL, but it knows how to do that.
So I think we got a question. I think they're asking about the many-to-many. So I guess they might be asking a little bit more detail on how that works, but I'm not.
Okay,
the question's not clear to me, at least.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
So if you want to follow up on that to let us know exactly what you're asking.
Well,
not you, but the guy who did it.
But I'm like, I got code. I can share a screen. Right?
Yeah, you can share a
screen. Is that cool, or would you rather not?
Simon, can she share a screen?
I see that.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So first of all, just to make it easier to see, I'm gonna switch my screen to a lower resolution.
Just don't drop offline.
No. Okay, it went over to this screen, so I'm going to share screen. Easiest with two monitors. That's true. Why is my wrist? Oh, somebody must be calling my cell phone because my Fitbit is going. Zzz. I hate that.
Maybe it's time to walk.
Screen. And I'm sharing this screen. So okay. Oh, I'm already in there. So here's some code, right? So this is actually code that I'm working on, the demos I'm working on. I'm updating my Pluralsight Getting Started with Entity Framework course because it's focused on 3.1. And I'm in the process of updating it for 5. Of course, you know, I have to, I have this preview thing in there. So I have to cover that up because right now you can only use I'm using .NET 5. You don't have to, by the way, for EF Core. EF Core 5 will work with .NET Core 3.1.
Cool.
But I happen to use .NET 5 because it makes some of the things, it makes it a little easier to set up migrations, and also the visualizer from Entity Framework Core Power Tools. So I'm using the preview version. So, you know, I don't want to wait until after it's been released in November to record everything. So I, you know, have to use this, and then I just have to cover up that little preview all the time. Kind of funny, but you know, it's still the real deal. This is Visual Studio 2019, but it's like version 8, you know, like starts with a preview. So this will get released along with .NET 5. Anyway, so what I have is a many-to-many relationship between Battle and Samurais. And as a matter of fact, I can show it to you with this visualizer. So, right, I have samurais and they fight in battles. So one samurai could fight in many battles, just as long as they don't get killed. And then, you know, hopefully a battle has more than one person fighting in it, right? So that's where the many-to-many relationship is. But if you, but if you look at my classes, so in the samurai class, I just have a list of battles. And in my battle class, I just have a list of samurais, and I'm not doing anything special in the context, right? I don't have to, I don't have to create an entity that is in between them.
Right.
I don't have to, you know, do anything special with the primary keys or anything, right? I'm not doing anything special here. And Entity Framework is able to recognize that. So that
just figures it out.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, so if we look at this DGML, this Battle Samurai class, it doesn't exist in my classes, but it exists in the data model because, you know, the DB context is reading everything and says, oh, in order to go from battles to samurais, I'm going to need to infer that there's this other entity in there. But the beautiful thing is when I'm writing code, I just say samurai battles.
Right.
Battle samurais when my queries and everything. So I don't have to, this is not in my code and I don't have to worry about it. And Entity Framework will figure that out, just like EF6 did. And, EF always did.
So the tool that you use to do the DGML did that automatically, or you put that in there?
This is the Entity Framework Core Power Tools. So
yeah. I haven't used those in a while, so yeah.
Well, this is so there was Entity Framework Power Tools that the team had started, and it was always a beta. And then Eric Eilskov Jensen, who has created, he's the guy behind not only the SQL CE provider for Entity Framework Core, but he's the guy who creates all of the the SQL CE extension and SQLite extension for Visual Studio. So he's so smart. He has a full-time job and he does this just to be nice. So he's really good at writing extensions. He really understands the internals of Entity Framework Core because he creates one of the providers. So he took over that code. It was open source. He took it over and he created a community edition of the Entity Framework. So like EF6 Power Tools. Then he created a whole a version for
Core?
installed for Entity, EF Core.
Right.
So that's what I have installed. It's extension. It's free. Like buy the guy a cup of coffee or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's amazing. So to get this in here, I just right click. There's the EF Core Power Tools. And what I did was add DB context model diagram. And what he's doing is he's having the DB context do its work of saying, okay, what does the data model look like, right? Not what are the domain model, but what is the data model that I'm using to, go back and forth directly into the database? What does that look like? And then he uses the Class Explorer, or, I don't know, the DGML. That exists anyway. That's part of Visual Studio to display it. So that's really cool. So what's really nice is you can see how Entity Framework is translating classes and the DB context into how it thinks things are working. Like say you have a one-to-one relationship and you want it to be required, right? Like these things can't exist with each other. Like you would open this up and you'd be able to see that the default for one-to-one is optional. So it would show you, you could see that maybe, actually, I don't know how that's visualized, but, things like that, to be able to see how Entity Framework is interpreting it before you commit to, how you're going to do it. Like, it's an amazing tool. Anyway, so back to the many-to-many, this is one way of doing it. This is a simple way. It's just like, toss the lists in on either end. Let me see what kind of change. Oh, okay. I can ignore that because I want to flip to fine. I don't want that in there. I just want to flip
live demos.
Yeah. But this is the super cool thing. So a lot of times with that data about that many-to-many relationship, sorry for all these things popping up. So annoying. You might want to track more information. Like this. So the samurai was, this samurai's fighting in this battle. When did they start? Right? Or something like that. When did they join the battle? Right? So where are you going to keep track of that information? So the database does have that entity, that table in there. To behind the scenes, Entity Framework understands that middle table is in the database. So Samurai app data. So this is many-to-many is the most interesting thing I think. It's so fascinating. And there's actually so much more about it. So that's why. So it will create this table for us, right? Just by that inference. Now I'm like, well, you know, I would really like some more information to be in this table. I'd like, you know, not just the IDs, but I want the join date in that table also, right?
Yeah.
So there's a way to do that. And without, so let's say you weren't tracking that, right? And you've already written your code. You've got all your queries that you say battle.samurais or samurai.battles. You've got, you know, all this logic that's knowing about, you know, just working with these navigation properties. So then you're like, oh, I want to track this other piece of information. So in EF6, what would happen is you have to create the class, right? The middle class, and then you have to use that middle class in all of your queries. You have to say battle, include battle samurai, you know, include with samurais, right? You'd have to always have that involved. So all your code's broken, right? So now, in order to track this extra piece of data, we do have to have an explicit class, right? That explicit class is in there, but Entity Framework will still totally understand how to just
the relationship.
Yeah, you don't have to use this in your code.
Right.
You don't have to talk about this. And then you just have to go and tell Entity Framework, by the way, you know, that that new, you know, that Battle Samurai class, that use that for mapping to that middle, that join table now. And then, you know, so this is just a little, you know, this is some new stuff. And then for like just a getting started demo, what I'm doing is instead of worrying about how we're going to populate that date joined property, I'm just letting the database do it. Right. Oh. So it's just getting in there. Anyway, there's so like how all this works. It's so interesting. Like I could do a whole course on it, but I probably won't. Anyway,
so far it seems a lot easier than it used to be in like any Framework 6. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, any Framework 6, if you decided like, you know, that would be really good to track the date joined, all your code's broken.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Your code won't work. But now it just continue. You can still just say, you know, battle.includes samurais. You don't have to navigate through the relationship. So that's just super awesome. Oh, I've seen somebody's like going, yay, Eric EJ is awesome. Yes, he is so smart and so generous with his time. Like he builds these amazing tools like in his spare time.
So we have another question. Why don't you read the long one?
Spend 20 minutes on it.
Well, because
that's the problem.
We got about 15 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get through everybody's questions. So, yeah. So, do you have anything for this one?
Oh, what's the experience now for entity configuration when you have derived entities from an abstract parent and you want to abstract the entity config? It's a thick question. So I just kind of have to break it down. So you're asking about common settings. Are you talking about like inheritance and derived entities from an abstract parent? You want the abstract entity config have some. I'm just gonna say I don't know because I don't really understand. I'd have to really think about it, and I don't really understand it. I'm so sorry, Connor. Sorry.
Well, maybe
so I'm not the expert.
Actually, I just sent him some books and stuff yesterday. So, Connor, if you want to follow up with me, I'll try to follow up with Julie and get an answer to that because I don't even know what you're asking either. So, so yeah, it's okay.
Oh, I don't have to share my screen anymore either.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I figured that out.
So any more questions or anything else do you want to talk about, Julie? Like anything at .NET 5 or you listed some things about AWS?
I'm doing all kinds of other stuff. Yeah. You know, like if people are like, oh, she's not going to talk about any framework.
We don't want to listen.
Yeah, whatever. So I did this crazy thing. I have some friends who work on the .NET for AWS team. It's not like an explicit team, but they're like developer evangelists who work at Amazon. They work at AWS, and they're focused on .NET. And they're like, Julie, how come you never, talk about .NET on AWS? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean .NET on AWS? They're like, .NET's cross-platform, and it can be, it doesn't have to, like, not even that it's cross-platform, right? Like, they have all this. Not only can you host it on .NET natively on AWS, but they have tooling. Like, they have this huge extension for Visual Studio.
Yeah.
It's been around since like 2015, or Visual Studio 2015 and 2017, I think even 2013, and of course 2019, that lets you interact with a lot of the different services that are in there. And they have APIs. So if you want to, build something that goes to EC2 containers, right? Like there's APIs that let you do that interaction. You can have a SQL Server database on AWS. Like, I didn't know any of this stuff. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Wait, what? Like looking at that. So I ended up writing a couple of articles for Code Magazine, and I did a course on Pluralsight.
Yeah.
Like a whole course on Pluralsight, just on, .NET, like building .NET, like ASP.NET applications that go on AWS. So it's not like just building it and then deploying it to AWS. Like, you're really doing a lot more interaction too, and taking advantage of their things.
Yeah, the very first in production microservices I did was actually using, this is like 3 years or so ago. I used AWS and .NET, and I'm sure their tooling has changed since then, but quite frankly, I was left not very happy with the experience, and
I think I remember this, because I said something on Twitter, and you talked about even trying to compile the extension.
Yeah, their extension won't even compile, and I did a code review on it, and I code reviewed a bunch of other open source ones, and it was like next to the worst as far as .NET code violations and things like that. And
that's gotten better,
and their tooling
internals of that.
Well, the one thing that they need to do, I don't know if they've done it since then, but they need to break up their thing into multiple packages or something, and not one big monolithic thing that does everything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They just had one thing that did everything, and so even if you didn't want to do some of the stuff that's in that code base, it was still there. And through that experience, and through my experience, on Azure too, is of course, Azure.NET is a number one, first-class citizen, but, my experience with AWS, it's not the same on AWS, and I kind of get it, right? But if they want to get more .NET people on, they need to make their tooling a lot better, and their documentation and about how to do things on AWS a lot better too. So I haven't seen your courses, but I will check them out.
To me, like, it might be interesting for you to have some of the guys from that team on the show, and you could talk about that.
I would love to have them on the show,
and they could show stuff.
If you want to hook them up.
I mean, there is, there are developers who are dedicated to like the tooling and the API, and there's developer evangelists. So, for me, I wasn't looking at it from that perspective that you were. I was just like, wait, what is all this stuff? How does it work? Oh, cool. Like, and learning about what all, like, these terms that I've heard, like, S3 and EC2 and all these terms I've heard over these years. I never knew what any of that was. Right. Yeah. So, either way, I think it's, somebody had asked, like, oh, are you doing this for a client? You're working with a client doing AWS? I'm like, no, I'm not. But, now I have some contacts and I have some knowledge, and then people are like, oh, well, will you do a comparison of Azure and AWS? I'm like, no, that's, that wasn't why I was doing it. I was just like, oh, what is this? How does this work? Oh, I can, just build a regular old ASP.NET Core application and, deploy it or stuff it in Docker, and they have this great, this great tooling for doing that. So
if you want to hook them up with me, please do, because because so in Southern California, at least, it's really hard to find anybody using Azure. And so AWS is like the big thing down here. And, I would love to want to work on AWS more, but my previous experiences haven't been that great. So if you want to hook us up, I'd love to have them on the show. And
sure they would love to.
Before we get off of that, Woody Pewitt interviewed for that job. And I really wish they would have gotten him, because at that time is when I was going through all that, and I was going, they need a .NET expert on their team, and I really wish Woody got on the team.
Well, the developer evangelists are two guys who came from the .NET community.
Yeah, but that they might have come after.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe that was when Woody was interviewing, whatever. But yeah. So I'm looking. I see a couple more questions.
How about the one about the course? Because you already answered like your favorite new features.
So I would totally start with if you want to do it today, getting started with Entity Framework Core. So that is based on EF Core 3.1.
Because Pluralsight's free right now, right? For this week.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. It's until tomorrow. Yeah. Totally.
So what's
free.
Now?
Yeah, totally free. As a matter of fact, I can't put. Yes, over on YouTube I can put the a link. I've got a really nice little shortcut. What is it? Just one moment.
Private chat, and I'll put in on all social platform.
Okay, so here's the boom. Where did YouTube go? Okay. How's that for a nice URL? bit.ly/PS free week. So
Simon will put that up.
Yep. Okay, great. TPT. Gosh, TPT is in EF Core 5. George.
What is TPT?
Table per type. So normally when you do inheritance, and I don't do a lot of inheritance because there's so many weird side effects. I don't do the kind of, I definitely do inheritance, but I'm just thinking about DDD and how I don't ask Entity Framework Core to take care of the inheritance mapping. That's really what I mean. So normally when you do inheritance, Entity Framework does table per hierarchy by default. And what that means is it puts all of the data of all of the columns of all of the inherited things into the same table as the base class. Table per type, it breaks it out into different tables.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So,
cool.
and it was really easy to have a lot of problems with table per type if you didn't understand the intricacies of how it was working. So, I had a client that, or in the early days, they used table per type, and they had a base class that was for audit data. So like date created by, right? And they had every class, every entity in their model. And of course they were doing the whole database, right? So one model for every single thing. So there was like 150 entities in there, and every single one of the entities inherited from the base class just to get this little audit data in. Of course, now we would just use shadow properties to take care of that. It's really easy. And they would do a query where they were just trying to find, who created this record, this one piece of data. And Entity Framework, because of table per type, and it didn't know which derived type to look in. So it built a query that looked in every single table. So it was like 5,000 join query. It was crazy. And it took like 2 minutes. They were in Oracle. It took 2 minutes for it to run just to get back literally one scalar value. So I went in and I said, how tied are you to this terrible model that's setting you up for disaster? And they said, we're very tied to it. Yeah. So I said, go write a stored procedure. And the DBA came back a little later and is like, it ran in 9 milliseconds. That was awesome. We didn't know we could do that. So yeah, well, so I don't pay deep attention to TPT just because it scares me so much.
Yeah, it sounds scary, but we're out of time. So I know, I wish we had another hour. I'm sure everybody would like it. We'll see how many people comment about it, but I'd love to have you on maybe next year, and so we can do some more. And one question I have for all my guests at the end, because life is more than coding. So besides taking care of your dad, what do you do for fun? Especially now in the fall, besides walking, I guess.
Walking on my treadmill.
I know you walk a lot, right?
I walk on my treadmill. Well, poor Samson isn't going on long walks anymore, but I do a lot of cycling, and yes, I do a lot of hiking, bicycling, and as soon as the snow comes, I'll be skiing and snowshoeing, and so yeah, that's a lot of it. It's just outdoors, because you see how beautiful it is out there, right? That's why we are here, so we can enjoy this beautiful place, Vermont.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for being on the show. It was so nice to see you live and in person, because I haven't seen you in a couple of years. So I'm really excited we got to catch up a little bit and talk a little bit about Entity Framework. And maybe next year I can get you back on. And also, I almost forgot, thanks for filling in for Kathleen at the last minute. Because Kathleen Dollard was supposed to be on this week, but she had some scheduling conflict, so she's going to be on next month. And also Mark Brown from the Cosmos DB team. Yeah. Well, he's going to be on next month too.
Awesome.
Or in a couple of weeks. I forget which. So thank you very much, and have a good rest of your afternoon. Yeah, good to see you too.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, Julie. Man, I really do wish we could have made this a 2-hour show today, because I love hanging out and talking with Julie. I always have. So before we go, Simon, can you put up my slide deck? Because I know Simon wants to go to bed. So the last thing we have to give away today, and so far I don't think anybody's won anything. So the $50 Amazon gift card. This is hopefully easy for everybody. But let's see what you get. I'm only going to give you a few seconds because we're almost out of time. All right. What is the code name for .NET 6 coming out next year? A lot of people refer to it as a code name, and that's what usually we do in software projects. We refer to it by its name before Microsoft slaps some kind of version number or something on it. So what's the code name for .NET 6? Anybody know? I'll let you answer. And if you answer, you get the $50 Amazon gift card. I want one. Julie doesn't even know. And also, don't forget, everybody who's watching the show right now can get a free copy of CodeRush by DevExpress. CodeRush is my favorite code refactoring tool. And I talked a little bit about refactoring at the beginning of the show. And it's a very, very important skill to learn as a software developer. And CodeRush has been the only refactoring tool I've ever used since Visual Studio and .NET came out. So I hope I see the answer come up before the show's over. Thanks for watching. Next week, speaking about data, I'm going to have Jeremy Lickness on. He's a senior program manager for .NET Data at Microsoft. So not only am I really excited to talk about that subject, but I've never actually talked to him in person. We've swapped tweets back and forth, so we kind of know each other that way. But I don't think I've ever talked to him in person. So I'm really looking forward to that, Jeremy. No pressure. Also, please be safe with the COVID pandemic. I worry about all of my people watching right now and all of my followers. All the numbers, unfortunately, in America are going up. I don't know about in your country. So please be safe. And And please listen to your medical professionals and wear your mask, Americans. Oh, and Americans, don't forget to go vote early. Also, the intro song I've been talking about for the shows is done. Yes, and you are going to love it. So the world premiere is next Saturday. If I can get the video together. So I'm working on a video with some of the people that actually played in the song, because I didn't play everything, because the song's a lot better without me playing everything. So that will be next week. So tune in next week. I'll probably do it at the beginning of the show, and it's going to look like an MTV video kind of thing. So please email me your suggestions to dotNetDave Live. And because I really want to make the show for you guys. This was an awesome show. So I need feedback, okay? We got a lot of questions today, which I'm really happy, but we need more, and we need more feedback. All right? And that's it. Thanks a lot for watching. And I'll see you next week on Rockin the Code World with dotNetDave.